Hello friends, Pastor Chester Hitchcock here with the Gospel Memory Course of the Old Testament. Today we are doing the book of Deuteronomy. This is the fifth book in the Old Testament and the last book of Moses. The next lesson will actually be a review of these first 5 books so that we can sort of do a self-test. If you have not subscribed to this channel yet, I would encourage you to do it now so that you don't forget, because you will not want to miss the coming videos. But today we are doing the book of Deuteronomy, and I am using ancient Greek memory techniques to help us remember where to find a few stories so that we can walk through the Old Testament in our memory. Now, some of those techniques that we are using is called loci, where we're going to locate our information in our mind in a funny way that we can remember it. We're going to do it in picture form because our mind remembers things in pictures. That's why we want to develop a photographic memory. Also, that's why the old MS-DOS computers are a thing of the past, is because Windows came in with all of their icons and our mind works in pictures. So we're going to do this in a pictorial way. We will use humor and things that will help us to anchor it into our memory. And one of the things that we'll do is use numbers to help us remember what chapters we're in, and every number has a picture. Now, I'm only going to give you the pictures for the numbers that we're using in this lesson. We're going to use the number 2, which is always a light switch, because a light switch has 2 ways: up, down, on, off, 2 wires, 2 screws. A light switch is always a number 2. So anytime that I use that number 2 in the picture, it's going to be helping us remember a chapter. We're going to want to remember the number 3. 3 is a stool. A stool has 3 legs. Anytime you see a stool with 4 legs, it's not a real stool. Stools have 3 legs. Keep that in mind. The stool has 3 legs. 4 is a car, because a car has 4 wheels: 4-wheel drive, 4 speed, 4 on the floor, 4 doors, 4 windows, so on and so forth. So when you use a 4, we're talking about a car. We're using that to represent a particular chapter, the chapter 4. We're also going to want to remember the number 5. And 5 is a glove, because a glove has 5 fingers. We're going to want to remember the number 19. 19 is a golf club. Now, a golf club, because those who play golf, you might know that the 19th hole is a golf club house. And sometimes they say it's a bar down the street. We will actually be using a golf bag in this particular story, but anything related to golf, or a golf club or a golf bag, is going to be for the number 19. We're also going to use 24. The picture for 24 takes the 2, which is a light switch, and the 4, which is a car, and puts them together to make a police car. Because none of us want to see that car behind us flip on the light switch and turn on the blue lights. Those are the numbers that we're going to use. So far we have located Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and now Deuteronomy in a filing cabinet so that we can open the drawers and find things in each one of the books. In the top drawer, there are 5 drawers in this filing cabinet. In the top drawer we have Genesis. And to help us remember that that's Genesis, we have a picture of a generator, and we use that in that book of Genesis. In the second drawer, we have Exodus. And to help us remember Exodus, we have an exit sign on that drawer. The next drawer is Leviticus, and we see things to levitate out of the book of Leviticus. The next book, when we pull that drawer open, you have to use a number pad to get the combination to be able to get into the book of Numbers, and everything that comes out of Numbers has a calculator attached to it in some way to help us remember that everything that comes out of there is the book of Numbers. Now this one is going to be Deuteronomy. And how we're going to remember the word Deuteronomy is we're going to have a picture of a dude with no money. Dude with no money. Deuteronomy. Dude with no money. Okay, so here's how we're going to do that. You open the drawer, or Deuteronomy, and what you find is a drawer full of money. A drawer full of money. But beside the filing cabinet is a dude with no money. A dude with no money, and he needs some money, so you reach into the drawer, get a handful of money and give it to the dude with no money, but in your other hand you reach in and you pull out a set of 2 tablets of stone with the 10 commandments, and you give them to him as well. Why? Because in chapter 5 of Deuteronomy is the second time that we find the list of the 10 commandments. In fact, the word Deuteronomy comes from 2 words, deuteros, which means second, and nomos, which means law. So it's the second giving, or the second time that we find the law. That's just a bit of information that you might find interesting. But in chapter 5 of Deuteronomy is where you find the 10 commandments. That's in your mind being pictured by handing them to a dude with no money, but also helping him with some money. The next thing that you want to remember is the chapter 19. 19 is a golf club, but in this case it's going to be a golf bag. Imagine that the dude with no money has a golf bag on his back, but instead of golf clubs he has refuse, he has trash in the golf bag from 3 cities of refuge where he has gathered up trash. Because in chapter 19 of Deuteronomy is where you find the establishment of 3 cities of refuge, where people would go if they needed to be able to have a safe place to live. This is where they could go and be safe. In chapter 19 is where you find the 3 cities of refuge. Then you want to remember the number 24, the chapter for 24. Instead of a police car, we're going to have a policeman who walks over to the dude with no money and is going to arrest him because he had not paid his alimony. Because in chapter 24 is where you find the laws of divorce. And so in chapter 24, the police officer is going to arrest the dude with no money because he had not paid his alimony. So take some more money out and pay his alimony for him to help him out. Now the next chapter that you want to remember is the chapter 32. And chapter 32 is where Moses actually gives his final blessing to the Israelites. So how we're going to remember 32 is I want you to ask the dude with no money to get up onto a stool and turn on a light switch. That's a 3 and a 2, which is going to give you 32, to stand up and turn on a light switch and focus the spotlight on Moses while Moses gives his final blessing to Israel. The next chapter that you're going to want to remember is 34. And in chapter 34 is where Moses dies on Mount Nebo. So after Moses gives his final blessing, I want you to imagine that Moses then sits down on a stool. Remember, 34, 3 and a 4. He sits down on a stool because his knees are bowed. Not bent, but his knees are bowed. And he sits down on a stool and he says, please put me in your car, take me to the top of the mountain where I can die. That's where Moses dies on Mount Nebo. Those are just the memory points for the book of Deuteronomy. What do we find? In chapter 5 is the second giving of the 10 commandments. You find the 10 commandments because you've got your gloves on, you're reaching in, and you're handing them to the dude with no money. In chapter 19, he's got a golf bag on his back that's full of refuse from 3 cities of refuge. So in chapter 19 is where you find the 3 cities of refuge. And then in chapter 24, with the police officer, is where you find the laws of divorce. In chapter 32, where he climbs up on a stool and turns on a light switch, you find Moses giving his final blessing to Israel. And in chapter 34, where Moses sits down on a stool because his knees are bowed, and then he says, take me in your car to the top of the mountain where I can die, is where Moses dies. Chapter 5 is the 10 commandments. Chapter 19 is the cities of refuge. Chapter 24 is laws of divorce. Chapter 32, Moses gives his final blessing. Chapter 34, Moses dies on Mount Nebo. That's how easy it is to remember these. And if you practice that 3 to 12 times over the next 72 hours, you will anchor it into your mind. Now don't forget to subscribe to this, because the next lesson is going to be a review of how to remember the things that we have learned in these 5 books. And you will want to be sure to be on to see that. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. And if you've not subscribed yet, click on that subscribe button and ring that bell so that you can get a notification the next time a video comes up. God bless. Happy memories.